We musicians are often asked that most difficult of questions. Who is your favorite composer? What is your favorite symphony? And so on. Painful to even attempt an answer. At least that is usually the case. But right at the top for me, with only a small handful of others, is the symphony we will play this coming weekend, Mahler's Third. Here are Mahler's words from a letter he wrote in 1896. Just imagine a work of such magnitude that it actually mirrors the whole world. One is, so to speak, only an instrument played on by the universe. My symphony will be something the like of which the world has never yet heard. In it, the whole of nature finds a voice. The idea behind the work is a conception of existence in its totality. A first movement symbolizing the summoning of nature out of non-existence, represented by the emergence of summer out of the dead world of winter. This is followed by 5 movements, each of which describes the various stages of being, illustrating a natural progression from an inanimate world through to a world of heavenly spirituality and peace. The massive initial movement contains a series of contrasting marches, the opening one expressing the sheer magnificence of the natural world, followed by a funereal march initiated by steady, deathly rhythms in the lowest register of the orchestra, confronted by petrifying leaps in winds and horns and intimidating trumpet fanfares, but most importantly, featuring a series of trombone solos, the first of which creates a menacing aura, conjuring some kind of terrifying proclamation from a formidable universal force. But gradually, with each appearance, the trombone softens its tone, ultimately into a feeling of embrace and tenderness. The third march element appears each time as if from a great distance and gradually grows in confidence and proximity as summer marches in. The movement culminates with a salute to the god Pan, in arguably the wildest outburst of positive energy Mahler ever conceived. The following movements each represent something quite specific, described by Mahler as a chain of being with stages of development in gradual progression. Even though he abandoned his specific program, his original concept is really the essence of the inspiration for the composition as a whole. Starting with the second movement, What the Meadow Flowers Tell Me, a delicate and elegant minuet with 2 contrasting middle sections full of vitality. The third movement's original title was What the Creatures of the Forest Tell Me, which Mahler referred to as the most ludicrous and tragic music that ever was. Midway through this movement, an offstage voice appears unexpectedly. It is a post horn with a sound like a delicate trumpet, weaving a tune of extraordinary calm, beauty, and simplicity. This important moment represents to me the first introduction of a voice of wisdom and comfort, a voice of humanity for the first time in the piece, but one that will never be abandoned. The fourth movement features a solo singing voice, in these performances the extraordinary Michel de Young. It is a version of the Midnight Song to Zarathustra, inspired by Nietzsche. The world is deep and deeper than the day imagined. Deep is its grief, but joy is deeper still than heartache. Grief says die, but all joy seeks eternity. This is music of intense beauty and introspection, featuring an oboe intoning the sound of the night bird. And then, in a moment of epic contrast, the fifth movement begins, What the Angels Tell Me, featuring both the women's and the children's chorus, as well as the contralto soloist. Here, Mahler uses humor and a degree of banality to express what is highest, the affirmation of life through repentance and forgiveness. And finally, we arrive at the culmination, What Love Tells Me. If there exists more profoundly beautiful music, I have not yet discovered it. resembling the greatest moments of the last works of Beethoven set in a context of late Romantic harmony. It contains the most tragically beautiful and life-affirming message of any music I know, and culminates in a grandness of spiritual optimism that has no equal. Please join us for what can only be described as an epic experience, April 12th, 13th and 14th at Boettcher Concert Hall. It could be 10 years before we program Mahler 3 again. You honestly don't want to wait that long.